You're listening to Seattle Real Estate Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Seattle Real Estate Podcast. I'm your host, Sean Reynolds, and today I have with me somebody who's been personally impacted by the shutdown, probably more than most folks. He owns 2 bars, and he's been on the podcast before. Thank you so much, Dan Flitsch, for coming on the podcast.
Hey, thanks for giving me something to do today, Sean. That's awesome.
And so for people who haven't checked you out on our podcast before, we talked about bar ownership as an investment. We talked about all kinds of things, bar and grill related. And on this podcast, I wanted to have you on because you and I have been kind of talking through the whole bar and restaurant shutdown, especially here in the state of Washington, because you have 2 bars. You've got the Savage Moose and you've got Off the Rails.
Right.
So I thought what we'd do at the beginning is what we're going to do is I've got this podcast cut down into 3 segments. Kind of how it all went down is number 1. Number 2 is so your bars and livelihood are shut down. What do you do? And number 3 is when and what will it look like when you reopen? So I kind of wanted to start off with tell me how you found out that your bars were going to be shut down. How did that all kind of go down?
That was primarily just it was more word of mouth than anything, but I was aware that Governor Inslee was going to have some kind of a statement, so I was looking for that to see what was going to be done. So really, I mean, and you saw it coming, where it was like, it was going to happen. But
did you know who our governor was before all this went down?
Actually, yes, I did. Yes,
okay,
I was aware of that.
I was kind of.
I didn't know he'd been governor for as long as he has been, though. That was the weird thing. Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you find out, I need to watch this governor.wa website for updates.
Right, exactly. And and every once in a while, and you get it as it's moving along. But I personally could see it coming in the just in the national media. You saw it where it was. I remember specifically seeing a newscast from Chicago where they were heading into the weekend of St. Patrick's Day, and you had downtown Chicago in the Loop and Rush Street where all the college kids were out just like having a great time when they'd kind of already been told, hey, we need to be cognizant of what's going on and how this disease is spread. And with St. Patrick's Day coming on the 17th, I felt like him picking that date as the start date for when we would have bars and restaurants shut down was probably... if you're going to do it, you might as well do it before that night because that's the biggest bar night of the year.
Right.
I mean, one of them, you know. So, which leads to something else interesting, which is if things were to go the way everyone sees it going right now because of the fact he's taking it out to May 4th, let's say, for instance, he was going to let things reopen on May 5th. That's Cinco de Mayo.
Cinco de Mayo.
So I'm looking at the odds of that.
What does that look like?
Right. No, I'd say that looks like another day where we're not out is what it really looks like. I can't imagine that actually happening for bars and restaurants, but we'll see.
Yeah, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
And so both bars were shut down as of May 15th, I believe, or March 15th.
It was
March 15th.
It was actually the day. It was at midnight so like he came out, had his announcement.
Yep.
Wanted those things to happen, and I think it was a little wishy-washy in the way the announcement was done, where he's kind of like in King County and Snohomish County, he was kind of in his address like, hey, that happens now, and then as of midnight on the 16th of March, statewide we're shutting everything down. So that in essence, he was shutting down.
The announcement came
on that Sunday, maybe I want to say. I can't remember when it was.
Yeah, I have the 15th as kind of the major
that was the
day.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So what did that look like for you? What was your first thought? Is like, oh my gosh, my bars are going to have to close. What kind of ran through your head?
Well, I was looking at the world running up to that, end of February to middle of March. I was like, okay, I think business is really going to slow down here and probably be running much slower. It's the slow time of year anyway when you're in February, March, but it's probably going to have my business cut. Let's say my business gets cut in half by this because of the issues going on and the kind of the panic I see spreading through the population. And I was like, you know what? I'm probably going to be okay for like a year running it slow business. I've got some savings put aside. I can cut staff where I have to. I can make this work in a way that's going to, be able to work to just keep the lights going on and to move things forward. But as soon as he went to zero cash flow,
Shutdown.
that really absolutely and dramatically changed everything. So
Right.
I feel like I'm a person who thought ahead. I've got some good relationships with my bankers, with people who I've worked with for a long time who, if I was really down on my luck, I've got relationships where I can figure out a way to be able to manage my way through it. And going to zero cash flow with the fixed cost associated with the bar, that just is disastrous. So like I look at the way I run my business, and then I look across the population of small businesses that were just getting started, small businesses that were maybe not doing awesome before this happened, and small businesses where the owners, for one reason or another, just economically are not, don't have anything put aside, and for one reason or another aren't going to qualify. Maybe they haven't been in business for a long time, so the banks aren't going to be as pleasant to them when they come looking for money. I just feel like it's hit as hard as it can, probably to me as a small business owner to start with, and I can't even imagine what it's going to look like coming out of this, and how many of the people that are in my position are even going to be able to come back.
Be able to yeah.
Yeah, regardless of what
Yeah.
the government tries to hand them.
Couple of things that popped up into my mind when you said that is there's a group, there's an owner with I think 14 or 15 restaurants in Seattle, and if I said the name you would know it. I can't remember.
Do you care if we say the name? Is it
No,
Tom,
I
Tom
just
Douglas?
Okay,
Yeah,
okay. And he was saying when this all happened that he spent $3 million shutting down those 14 or 15 restaurants. Mm-hmm. Does that sound about right?
Well, yeah, and I mean, the business model that he had is different from mine, where like he's got bussers, he's got kitchen, he's got
big shows
tons
on all
of,
those.
yeah.
Those are big restaurants.
So the payroll that he has trailing the business he's doing, and that's the thing people I hear so many times, and this is the this is the part of the whole system that I feel like you got to have some understanding of, which is hey. What kind of business are these business owners and these corporations running if just because they don't make money for a few weeks, they're done? Well, it's like the whole economy is like a river that's flowing together. And when you pinch it off...
It's not flowing.
Right. When you pinch it off at a small level, it has impacts all the way down the economy.
Down the food chain.
Yeah, and this is one where you shut it off, literally.
Right.
So, I'm looking at that, and I'm like... When you run a business, I have savings and things set aside, but then you also have, hey, my employees work for me the 1st through the 15th, and on the 20th, I pay them. And I was talking to my accountant who runs payroll for about 40 different bars, and we were talking about it in early March before we got to the middle, and he's like, I've got bars already where they're struggling to get me the money. And he writes the paychecks out of a trust account. So when those checks are issued, the money comes out of his trust account no matter what. And he counts on us to be legitimately having funds available when we give him the money that we give him for payroll. And to his credit, he's always operated on good faith with me, where like I go to get my checks on Friday and I write him a check on that Friday, and it's not coming through my bank till like Monday or Tuesday the next week, and the money's always there, so he's good to go. Now he has 40 bars that are struggling. Now he's writing hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of payroll checks that are all getting cashed by all of our employees, and all of a sudden, even before the shutdown, those bars were struggling, and some people were not getting him the money that he needed in return for that. And now you add to that my bars shut down on the 15th. I'm usually getting cash coming in the door every day of the week, so that when the check comes through my account on the 22nd or the 23rd, I've got whatever my payroll amount is in my account. There's that trailing flow of liabilities that all of a sudden, when you have zero cash flow, just hits you
just
right
massive.
in the face. Yeah.
Right.
And that was something where most of the savings gets used up for payroll, for suppliers you've paid for things for. For me, I mean, I'd love to have undone what I did, but in my Bellevue bar, 2 weeks before my bar was shut down.
Off the rails.
Yeah,
Let's give Off the Rails a little plug.
Off the Rails. 2 weeks before the bar was shut down, I had all of my pool tables re-felted and re-leveled and had some stuff done, like really geared up. Brand new rails, like the whole thing, which it doesn't sound like much, but in the end, it's about $5,000 that it cost me, because I've got a lot of pool tables at the bar. And I paid that to my dude, wrote him a check.
Yeah, and you probably felt good about it at the time.
Felt great about it. People are all pumped.
Hey, you should come in and check out my Off the Rails. It's got amazing pool tables.
And now for the last month, I've had beautiful pool tables sitting completely
those
unused.
Those are aging so well.
Oh, yeah.
Because there's just no use.
So, like, I look back on that now and I'm like, oh, great. That money would have come in real handy.
Really handy to pay this bill.
Right.
And then you've got rent on top of that.
Yes.
That is really high at
especially
your Bellevue bar.
Yeah.
And doable up at your Kenmore bar,
right,
which we will shamelessly plug right now.
Yeah, Savage Moose.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is still doing takeout orders, by the way.
Still doing takeout orders. Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. So let's talk about that. So you shut both bars down, but you made the decision to do takeout at Savage Moose because that's just a better environment for takeout there.
Right.
Thought it was more viable initially. What made you make the decision, yep, this bar is going to do takeout, this bar isn't?
So food sales as a percentage of bar income, and my bar in Bellevue is a lot more of a crowd that comes in after work. We're located very close to Microsoft and the Redmond campus, and it's very much of I'd say it's not as much of a neighborhood, local people who are like living right close walking distance to the bar coming into the bar. I have some people like that in Bellevue, but my population that comes to the Kenmore bar, dramatically more like that. So I had probably a better chance of making that work. And really the takeout is more just designed right now. I had produce at both bars that was going to go bad. I had items that, like, we always serve fresh ground beef. We don't freeze the ground beef. So I'm like, okay, I've got to work through the ground beef that I have here. I've got like all of this kind of stuff. So if I keep Kenmore open, I can use up the produce that I have in Bellevue. I can use up the produce I have in Kenmore rather than throwing it in the trash. I can keep a bartender and a cook working for a few hours a day. No matter how great they tell you the unemployment system is and the things like that for my employees is, in the end, as a bar employee, you're not making anywhere close to the money you made as a bartender on unemployment, because what I pay them for is the tip income, or is the hourly income, and then their tips, whatever credit card tips are there, we run through the system. They take cash from my tills each night for that money, and then I'd simply have the credit card company reimburses me for the tip cash that they took out. But the point is, they report those tips on their income tax, so it's not a reportable issue besides me telling my people that need to know what the credit card tip amounts were in my bar. So what they're getting for unemployment is solely based on their hourly pay, which is not in
great.
A lot of cases.
Yeah.
It starts at 50% of what they would make, and then the state gives them 60% of that.
Right.
So, and a lot of them are part-time hours.
Okay.
So unemployment, they're getting nothing close to a livable amount.
So they are not killing it.
Right. They're in crisis almost immediately as soon as my bar gets shut down. So I'm like, okay.
What about the extra $600?
Well, that comes into play further down, like with this all the PPP stuff. Like, what that created is an interesting conundrum now for owners, because, like, let's say that my base salary that I have somebody get, a bartender's making $13.50 an hour right now in King County. So that, comes down to what, $27,000 a year if you're working full time. So now you divide that. So that's a little over, maybe let's say $2,500 a month is actually more than what that is. Now, whatever unemployment they're getting plus $600 a week, they're getting paid more than my hourly wage would be if I brought them back So now I've got my money for the PPP loan, which we'll probably get into.
Yeah, we'll get into that for sure.
And I want to hire them back on. They're actually making way more money being unemployed because of the $600
with the $600.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be interesting.
You've literally got employees who are like, I could go back to work for Dan, but if I do, I'm going to probably make less. Plus, I kind of like sitting at home doing nothing.
Well, and you also have the fact that my bar has been closed by the governor. So if I brought them back as full-time employees, I would pay them to clean all day. And
because you're closed.
Right.
You're still closed.
And I'd have no income at all
Yeah.
to offset it, except for the money that the government has given me to pay them.
Yeah.
And again, there's...
Yeah, which is... And we will...
Yeah, there's so many... Yeah,
so many
that.
things.
Yeah.
How are you personally surviving? Because we've talked about your business, keeping your businesses running, and that's a factor I think a lot of people forget, is that not only are they places that your employees work, but it's also your livelihood.
Mm-hmm.
So what usually happens with small business is everybody else gets taken care of, and then it's like, oh my gosh, I got everybody paid. That's awesome, but I didn't pay myself.
Right.
So how are you surviving?
Yeah, and the way I have my businesses set up is I'm not on payroll because in essence the bar, everybody gets paid in a small business except for the owner, and the owner gets paid when they make money, which is great when you're making money.
Right.
And that's the risk you
when
take.
you're open for business.
Right. No, and I mean that's the risk you take, and,
Yeah.
and that's part of what I love about the business. It is a deal where like the government loans that they're bringing out and those things are of not much benefit to me so long as my business is not allowed to be open. If my business were allowed to be reopened and this was in place, that would help to be able to refill the hole that's been created by the shutdown. But in the current situation, it's really hard when you just don't know what's coming back and how much is going to come back.
Yeah.
It just creates uncertainty that's going to be interesting to deal with. So, I think if from multiple angles, both parties have tried to come at how we solve this for the people who are impacted that don't have the flexibility that I have as the business owner, I guess they think. But it's at the level of my bartenders and my cooks, they've done a good job of trying to reach out to them and make sure they have something in place to keep them from absolutely being crushed by what's going on. And I appreciate that. And I think that it makes sense to try to do that. Again, and it's a lot of voices in the media and in politics trying to make answers happen really quickly without all the data. And I think that's how you got to where we are and what we can talk about in the whole thing. Like there's, does it make sense to give everybody $1,200 to restart the economy when you got no economy to spend?
There's no
$1,200
where are you going to spend your money?
Right.
Amazon?
Yeah, and so I mean, and that's the thing. It's like if you're trying to create solutions, I see what they're trying to do, but sometimes they all, the media paints it as, oh, those dirty corporations are getting all the money. Well, an open economy and the dirty corporations with all the money will actually create an economy that makes it work for a large portion of the population.
Get that money pumping through the system.
And it's starting that river up that matters more than making sure that people at the bottom, and I don't mean to say bottom, but people who are employees at the portions of the river getting that money. If it's not flowing through the whole economy, it's still got some flaws that you just simply can't solve by throwing money at it from the government.
Because you can throw all kinds of money, but you've got to open that. You've got to get that river flowing. How do you feel Governor Inslee has handled this shutdown?
My opinion is going to be the roughest opinion of how it's going because I basically, he's in a position that's very unique, and I know it's not done on purpose, but he's basically picking the winners and the losers in the middle of this thing by the actions that get taken. And you know what? If they really believe that keeping everybody in is the solution to it, he probably feels like he doesn't have any choice at all. But again, both my parents were teachers. I'm the only person in my family who's not a teacher. So I don't mean to sound anti-teacher in this at all, but I'm like, teachers are getting paid and school's been shut down for the rest of the
All
year.
government employees
Right.
are getting paid.
All government
All
employees.
of them.
Yeah, all the friendly ones that I call when I need help with something from Liquor and Cannabis Board or the Department of Revenue, they're all
Yeah.
getting paid.
Yeah, they're still going.
The bus drivers are getting paid. Everyone is getting paid. And for me, the Department of Revenue has given me 30 extra days to pay my taxes that are due to them for excise tax every month.
Extremely generous of
Right,
them.
exactly. And
Now 30 whole days,
Yeah,
or
30
like,
whole days.
like 31.
it was supposed to be end of April, but they're going to
Okay.
give me till the end of May.
Wow.
And then you've got property
when,
taxes.
when you're shut down
Yeah.
and you're not generating any money,
Right.
that's
Exactly.
difficult to overcome.
And so again, so winners and losers being chosen
Yeah.
at that point. And and unfortunately, I'm in a business that I think the only business that Governor Inslee considers more dangerous than mine is strip clubs. So like I've probably got a deal where everyone's looking at May 5th saying, "Hey, we're getting back up and started at that point." I am a much more pessimistic look at this where I feel like, nah, if it starts up, it's going to be at a modified social distancing.
Yep.
And you've already seen California extend to May 15th. So I feel like it's kind of that deal where once they've got you in the pot and they're turning the heat up little by little and you're not realizing it's going up little by little, they can tell you. They may darn well know that they may not be able to really give us a full flowing economy for quite some time, but they're going to give it to us in little chunks because
Yeah.
that's the easiest way for us to
Yeah.
digest it.
I-
And it's
I-
the not knowing that's the toughest part.
That's
for a
the hardest
business
thing.
owner.
And
Yeah.
you just, so if you had a date, you just figure out your finances accordingly and
Make it
figure out a
work.
plan.
Yeah, I'd
but
love
not,
to-
not knowing is what's killing everybody, and it kills the stock market
Mm-hmm.
because that uncertainty is like,
Yeah, it's all
we're
about
just
the
not sure.
information. Yeah, and I mean, I would love to be extremely generous with my employees and just be like, hey, here's how far we got to make it. Here's the cash I have access
Right.
to. Here you go.
Because the date's been
Because
set.
we know.
Yep.
Yeah. But
Clock's ticking.
Because I don't know,
Yeah.
I need to be prepared for a longer term thing. And I think right now everybody's operating from that standpoint of hey, we may have unemployment that hits numbers like no one has seen since the Great Depression.
Yeah.
But
Or
that's-
more.
But that's fake.
Or more.
But they all think it's fake unemployment because we've
Everybody's
decided
going
to shut
back.
it down and
Yeah.
everybody's
Everybody's going back.
What we're going to find out after we reopen it is that the real unemployment is going to be dramatically higher than people think it is because
Right,
50% of the economy is small businesses.
Yep.
Not that 50% will not come back.
No.
Like there will be a portion of it, and those businesses that make it are going to have to batten down the hatches and be really lean and mean coming out of this, which means less employment, which means less money for the bigger corporations, which means less employment in those corporations, which means less money for the largest corporations, which means less employment in those.
It
And it's
impacts
gonna be
everybody.
huge.
It
Yeah,
impacts everybody.
Absolutely.
And that's what a lot of people, I think that, and you and I have talked about this, that are not business owners. A lot of those people are the people that are sitting at home right now saying, yeah, let's keep the shutdown going for months. Let's just really kill this virus. And I think those people, their attitudes will change when their job gets handed back to them and they are no longer needed.
I look at the impact of people in the employment market that haven't seen it yet, and I agree with you on that. Because for me, honestly, that hashtag "stay home, stay safe" thing, all that, I'm like, that's really neat for you, who you work in a spot where you haven't been impacted by it yet. And trust me, it's coming for everybody. And that's the part where, and I don't mean to be overly pessimistic about it, but like I look at my kids, for instance. I've got a daughter who is a senior in high school this year, and she plays tennis. Totally all pumped for like her senior year tennis, and now she's got no prom, no graduation, no tennis.
Her senior year.
Rest of the school year called off.
Oh,
yeah,
terrible.
And she's heading to college next year in Chicago. And her mom and I decided, like about I want to say about a week ago or so, we're like, you know what? We're just going to send her to Chicago because her older brother lives there, and he's lives 3 blocks from her older sister. The 3 of them can all just hunker down. The siblings can have a blast, kind of in the pandemic together by themselves, kind of a deal. And each of my kids is asking me how things are going for me and talking about how it's not impacting them at all. And like my daughter works for a law firm in Chicago, and she got a new laptop out of the thing, and everything's all remote now. And the Cook County has figured out how they can, do the recording of legal documents electronically, and they're making some moves on that. And right now she hasn't been impacted at all financially by what's going on. In fact, she was jacked when I told her about the $1,200. She's like, I don't even know what I'm going to do with that. I might just pay down my student loan or something, and
not realizing she needs that to pay bills.
Right. And at some point,
things go sideways.
At some point, there's going to be a slowdown, and she is in a position where I think they'll do their best to help her out. But business is going to be impacted. And when business is impacted, the newest hires are the ones who are going to need to be prepared for change that brings them. And same thing, my son, he works in ministry. He's a pastor at a church. And, it's great that they're doing everything they can to have an online presence, be encouraging. They're working, they're giving away food to people that need it in the community. They're active in terms of trying to be everything they can to support their group. But in the end, less money, less tithing, less capital to the church. There's going to be a point in time where that has an impact. And these are the jobs where these people haven't been hit yet. If you're working for a company that's allowed you to remotely access, that works great for a little while. But now if you put together a quarter or two where the sales have been crushed by the fact that the economy is not operating efficiently, everyone has uncertainty, and nobody wants to part with their $1,200 they got from the government because they're thinking they'll need it just to survive. Now, how do you find your way to get out of that system, and what level of unemployment does that bring to the whole economy? These are just questions you've got to ask.
Massive.
Yeah. And so it wasn't started by a flaw in the economy, but it's going to create a flaw in the economy that is going to be difficult to overcome, much more so than people really think it is looking at this now.
The impact to the people of the United States will be far greater from shutting the economy down than the actual toll from the virus.
And again, and then you get into the debate about what is the value of a human life. And we don't have to get into that here because you make enemies when you start talking about those things.
People get upset. Right. They get really worked up when you quantify it.
But the question is, what are you going to do as we come out of this? Because my thought as well is, I'm like, hey, this is great that the state let all the people get on unemployment that I had to let go because the governor told me to let them go. And because of my performance at both of my bars, even though bars typically have a really high unemployment payment they're making every month when they're doing their payroll, for me, I was actually pretty low on that. But now, funny how they've not really mentioned how they're going to take care of getting that pool of money back when this is done.
Yeah.
But here we are, we're going to be businesses that had a tough time getting through this. I'm going to be a guy who, like, when I look at where I was at the end of February, it's going to take me minimum 2 years of just hustling and really rocking it to get back to where I was once I reopen.
Yeah.
And all of that being said, I'm going to be paying more in taxes, and we're all going to be paying more because somewhere the government has to get this money back.
Right.
Because it's not pretend money.
They can't operate at a deficit.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, so it's really, these are all things that are coming. And obviously in the middle of it, you got to figure out a solution to the thing and work it forward. But now we're here in the middle of it, and it has a big impact. It's something where, and unfortunately, I have a lot of time to think about the impact because I'm really doing my best to be active and doing things that are going to help. Like my restaurants have never been cleaner.
Just so clean.
I mean, when we reopen, it's going to be crazy clean. Like people will not.
So let's talk about that. So you
Yeah.
shut both your bars down. What do you do now? So your bars are shut down. You clean them. They look awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Your businesses are ready to roll. There's been all kinds of lifelines thrown at us from the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
What have you done? Which programs? Payroll protection program, for sure. You've applied to that.
Yes.
How about the EIDL, the emergency?
Yes. And did you get the email about that this morning? They just changed it.
I did not apply to that one. I applied just to the payroll protection.
Yeah, I figured when I was in the middle of the whole thing, it was interesting. The economic impact loan was available before the PPP thing came out.
Yeah.
And you would go on the website, you'd fill out all the stuff, and it was a $10,000 advance, and then they'd consider the loan after that and figure out all the details. And then all of a sudden one day the website just shut down. And then when it came back, all the logins, like I'd actually worked through it, I was ready to submit, and all of that information was just gone, and it was just information about it, and then you could get on the website and find people to talk to about the economic impact disaster loan, and then all of a sudden a few days later, then you could log in, only sign up for the $10,000 grant.
I read about
and
that.
then they would take care of the rest later, they're saying. So, and it was going to take like 3 days to get the grant. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to get in. I'm going to put this stuff down. And that was about 2 weeks ago. And now nothing has happened, no word or anything like that. And then today I got an email from them saying, now what they're doing is they're going to give you $1,000 per employee up to the $10,000 as the grant. And that's kind of it. And I'm not sure how well they're moving forward with the actual full loan amount thing on that. Or what's
and how many
going on.
employees do you have between the two bars?
I mean, if you talk about full-time equivalents, I don't know what it really is, but I've got probably in the Kenmore bar like 12 employees. In the Bellevue bar, I've got like 9-10 employees. So,
Okay.
you
So
know.
over 20 between the two.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And it's a good sized number. It's a bunch of people to have to talk to
right.
when you shut your bar down.
Yeah, and for them, I mean, for Kenmore, I was just like, hey, you know, we're shutting it down. We're going to do takeout. We're only open 6 hours a day for takeout. And we're doing Grubhub, which, you know, it's good for now, but the food in general for a bar is a loss leader. So, like, the food cost, the cook cost, the bartender cost, like, at the end of the day, I have probably lost, a few $100 a week doing takeout orders. But to me, the benefit of some tip income for the bartender and the cook, some hourly income for them, and money they know is going to get there, and they know what day it's going to be there because they know I'm going to sign the check to get it to them. I feel like it's brought them some clarity, at least in the middle of this, and it's not enough for any of them to really make it in the long run, but it's at least something that kind of keeps the ball rolling. So,
Right.
yeah.
I think a lot of people think, oh, they're doing just fine. They're doing a lot of takeout.
No.
But for a bar, and to clarify, you can sell alcohol in closed containers, but you and I kind of talked that through, and you can't compete basically with how a grocery store sells it.
Right, because they're selling it at maybe $1 above what I'm paying for wholesale for a 6-pack, and that's not what we do at the bars.
So there's no way for you to compete with the grocery stores.
Right, and
with the
canned beer
takeout.
doesn't go bad, so I should just keep it until I can sell it at my price.
Right.
But we can do growlers now, which
Okay.
is nice because we can work through our kegs of beer that are
That's
there.
right, that have been opened but
Yeah.
haven't been consumed.
Exactly. So that's worked out pretty decently. It's helping a little bit. But yeah, again, it's got to be in a factory sealed container or a growler. We couldn't sell somebody a to-go vodka soda or something.
Right,
like
mix
that.
one up and here you go. Let's put it in a
Right.
to-go cup.
Yeah,
Does
exactly.
not work.
Can't do that.
And then the economics of your takeout business, that doesn't, I mean, you're basically saying you're losing even more money, but you're doing that to kind of hold your people together, to hold your employees together, and probably for you to kind of hold it together too. Hey, you're doing something.
Oh yeah, it gives me something to be functional about. Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons we went to this daily podcast was that I knew we were going to be really slow, and I do not do well like you sitting around looking for my next Netflix
Yes, exactly.
series. And so we decided to do the daily podcast. It's like I need something to do
Right.
on a regular basis. So you've got both your bars shut down. You've got a little bit of business going out on takeout. So the disaster loan, the EIDL, that's not going to really provide any real benefit. Let's talk about the payroll protection
What I
plan.
like about the economic disaster one, though, is that I can use that for utilities, rent, and payroll if I want to. The payroll protection loan is a much more restrictive product, and only marginal beneficial. In fact, not beneficial in any way to the business when I'm required to be shut down.
When you're shut down. So let's talk about that. So if you get funding, you're pretty close. Walk me through your process. You went to
I have to
different
give
banks.
a shameless plug here along the way. So so Washington Federal,
Okay. Local bank.
Has really been go-to, and it primarily because of their people. I feel like they've been very communicative with me along the way. They've helped me to be able to get things rolling in the right way, and it's been pretty impressive to me because today I got my last. So I have approval on the PPP loan for both bars.
Yep.
And they also were very reactive at the beginning before anything else happened. I was able to get what they call a lifeline line of credit, basically, which what I like about that one is it gives me flexibility to use that money for what's necessary to keep my doors open and lights on, and it's not restrictive in terms of how I use it. So
Is that a low interest rate loan?
I pay 0% on it for 90 days with no payments on it for 90 days. And then after that, it becomes a loan that's tied to prime, but I mean, at this point, if I'm paying, I think that it factors out to like somewhere between 5 and 6% that's paid on the thing. And it's interest only payments required.
So for a commercial loan, that is basically as cheap as it's going to get.
Right, exactly. I mean, and that's for the amount of flexibility I have in spending it and the payback and such. It's a great product for me to be in, and they were very quick. Like I applied on a Friday, I had approval on a Monday. The Lifeline was open on Wednesday.
Okay,
You know?
so that's funding that you hit them up, or they hit you up directly. Said, hey, here's this loan.
Mm-hmm.
So you took that loan down, and then you are close. Have you funded anything on the payroll protection program?
No, both of the loans are approved with. They said the funds are reserved. So once that happens, they've got 10 days to put them in my account, or they lose.
Do they put the whole amount in your account?
Yes, when they fund it, they fund the whole thing.
Yeah, and that's 2.5 times your payroll.
Basically, that's exactly how they did it.
So you sent in your IRS Form 941s on your employees. How long did that take you?
Well, my accountant was all over that. I mean, so
he helped you out.
Yeah, so I had my 941s on Thursday when the loan became available on Friday. And their portal wasn't ready until late on Friday night. So basically,
that was a disaster. The way they rolled that thing out, and it's still a disaster.
Absolutely. No, and it's the kind of thing where it's going to get even weirder when it comes time for payback because there's these real strict requirements on how you use it. You know, I mean, it's like, hey,
75% of it has to be used towards payroll and keeping your
all the employees there, right?
During a time period when your bar is closed.
Correct.
So say you get paid today. Say as we're sitting here, a bunch of money comes through.
Right.
Your bar is shut down.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to hire your employees back to do what?
Okay, so here's where it really gets interesting because, like, for me, I'm like, okay, so I have employees that just this week started getting $600 extra from the federal government to be unemployed.
Yeah.
And that will go on for 8 weeks for them. And I've had a bunch of phone calls with my accountant on this. We've been talking about exactly what you're supposed to do because you have until June 30th.
You got to spend that money
to bring back all your employees to the same level and to be using that money. And that's what I've been debating. And again, I still don't have as clear an answer as I'd like to have when it comes to the government because I'm not certain if we have to begin using it immediately and be done using it by the 30th of June or if we need to be using it by the 30th of June. That's the thing I'm hearing a lot of different discussion about.
Yeah.
And my accountant sent it to his attorney, and his attorney read it and told him he thought that probably, and I don't like it when it starts with probably.
So let's back that up. So these are industry professionals.
Absolutely.
That's what these guys do.
Right.
And they're kicking around this information to other industry professionals because they can't figure it out.
Right.
I have watched so many YouTube videos.
Oh yeah, JJ the CPA. I watched him and I was like watching it. I'm like, wait, that's not the like. And after I saw his broadcast, I'm like, I don't think he's right. I'm not sure. And I'm looking this up. That's the thing where it's like, that's so fast. Like March 27th, this was passed.
Yeah.
They're giving people money now.
Yep.
And it's a huge difference maker to me how the government looks at this. Because basically, let's say it's $50,000. Here's $50,000 to you. If I use 75% of that money to pay my employees to bring them all back, 25% of that money I can use to pay Puget Sound Energy,
utilities,
Bellevue City Water, maybe even my landlord for some rent, and I mean, and
shocker.
And unfortunately for me, in the rent structure in Bellevue, even with my full loan amount based on my average payroll from last year, doesn't even come to half a month's rent for me in Bellevue for the 25%. So it's nice to have that money, but it really is not beneficial to me as the business owner, except if I'm open for business and I'm using the government money to pay that. Now I can have revenue coming in that's helping me fill that massive hole that was created.
Yep.
And there it becomes something where this is actually a government program that is pinpointed toward helping the employees and the small business employers that really is doing that. The whole problem comes into it where how and when do we reopen? Right. And what does my business look like at that point? And of what benefit is it to me? Because again, I want my employees to survive this, but for me, it might be better for me to just let them be unemployed for 8 weeks. If I can wait to start paying them at the end of June, now we're all benefiting from it and it's working, and I've got a business that has a better opportunity to thrive coming out of this, which is what I believe the intent of the thing was.
You as a business owner, like all business owners, you are strategically thinking, what is the date of reopening? Because I got to figure out how I'm going to get from here to there. Right,
and then I need money to reopen once we're ready to reopen.
Yeah, that's one of my questions here is, and so do you think, in its essence, do you think the payroll protection program will keep you in business?
No. I mean, plain and simple, no.
No.
I think
because it's flawed.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like I don't know, sometimes I feel like the legislature isn't taking the time to really inform themselves well enough about what really is happening at ground level. Like, I think they passed this when they didn't know how long we'd be shut down. So that explains some of the flaws in it. But the other piece is, hey, let's throw the taxpayers $1,200. Hey, let's throw the unemployed an extra $600 a week. Hey, let's make sure that we've got payroll covered for these people so that if their businesses are struggling to keep them employed, that we're making sure they've got pay. Well, now we've hit them 3 times, the same group, 3 times with 3 things that all kind of overlap a little bit, and none of them are very pinpoint or strategically done. And then we've got this other group where, well, we don't want businesses getting rich off of this deal. You know how they are. They'll dig in and they'll and it's like, hey, guess what? I've got a mortgage. I've got bills. I've got things I have to pay as a business owner.
And you will not be, like me, you will not be getting that $1,200 check, will you?
Exactly.
You will not be getting that extra $600 in unemployment.
Right. So what do you do in that situation, and how do I work through that? Again, I get it. Part of why I'm in the spot I'm in is the risks I was willing to take, and this is one of those risks I'm taking. And there's no arguing with it. When it's going well, I'm feeling great about
You're the
things, king of the world. But when it's going poorly, don't pretend you're helping me if you're not helping me. That's all I'm saying. I'm like,
and that's the point I think that needs to be made, is that this isn't really helping a lot of businesses, especially businesses like you that can't generate any income. You guys can't work from home.
Right.
You got to go to the bar.
Well, if I do work from home, I'm not charging myself for my product, and it's going very badly in general. I mean,
that's not where we want to see Dan Flitsch. We want to see Dan at the Bellevue Club working out. We don't want to see him. Don't want to see him trying to find happiness at the bottom of one of his bottles.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Well, and you even think, but it's even more than that, where it's like, I get it. I feel like everyone should feel the pain as equally as we can. And I'm like, so then you got to figure out philosophically, how do we define equal? Like, how many millions and millions and millions of dollars do you think that Kemper Freeman is going to lose during the course of this.
And
Right?
Kemper Freeman being the owner of Bellevue Square,
the Bellevue Collection,
and
the whole
Bellevue
thing.
Collection, and
Right.
Lincoln Towers.
No, I mean,
massive
it's
commercial
insane.
at downtown Bellevue. Millions and millions.
Oh, I mean,
and millions.
tens of millions. It's going to be huge.
Does he have pandemic insurance, you think?
I don't know, but
I bet you he's got to.
I hope so.
Yeah. So
But
some
the point
insurance
is,
company is just going to go sideways on this.
well, and I get it, the fact that there are people that are just like, well, that's not fair that he would be like, hey, the thousands and tens of thousands of people whose employment is dependent on his success, though, is a big number that you have to think about in the overall economic river we're talking about here.
Yep.
And that's my whole point. Like, you have to think about economy is a lot more than money. It's more about the social and economic interaction of everybody together making the whole thing happen. And the interruption in that, again, it's too big of a problem to be able to be solved by politically minded people trying to make sure that they've got a great platform to stand on to say what they did when this was over. You know, again, I think they're doing the best they can with the information they have, but I truly believe that it's like it is bigger than people really understand that it is, and we won't know that for years from now.
It's like we know some of the unemployment numbers. We know we've got 16 million unemployed, about 10%, maybe up to 13%.
Right.
But we don't know, like mortgage forbearance. That's a big topic, in real estate. How many people have requested, I don't want to pay my mortgage.
Right.
I can't pay my mortgage. That's happening all day long. Mm-hmm. And then when we go back to work, a lot of people are probably not going to get that call of, hey, we need you to come back to work.
Right.
Because their business is not in a position to reopen. So let's talk a little bit about kind of the food industry as a whole. Talk about food chain. Literally, you deal with food chain economics. So how does that kind of work? When you reopen, are you going to be able to get all the food you need? Are you going to have suppliers that are done?
Well, no. So it's funny because I use the same food. U.S. Foods does the food supply for all of my stuff, and school lunches. That's them. Nursing homes, hospitals. That's them. All of these. So in places where they don't have us, like now restaurant and bar is a huge impact to their business, but the food that they have is all needed in places anyway, so they're still able to do it. But I've definitely had a few calls with my rep where I'm just like, hey dude, been in business for 5 years, never given anyone else a chance to even walk in the door because it's all about the relationship you and I have. When I finally get a date that we're reopening and I need to be sure I have food that day so I can make it go.
Right.
Am I a guy who's on list
Am
A?
I on the list?
Or am I on the JV team? Because I want to be
am
sure.
I going to get a play?
I want to be sure that
Put me in, coach.
I'm a dude who's getting a truck at my place so I can reopen, because that's going to be critical.
Critical.
Yeah.
And those are the things people don't think about. They think, well, Dan's bar is physically there. He'll just turn the lights on and go. Mm-mm. Well, just turning the lights on is expensive, because that means during this whole turn down, you haven't had any income to keep those on. Your place is still there because you paid the rent or you worked out a deal with your landlord.
Yeah, we're still in the midst
of
that.
You're still probably negotiating that. I mean, how many bar owners right now are like, I can't pay my rent. I am not capable of paying my rent.
Well, I got to be, like my Bellevue landlord, I've been really impressed with the conversations I've been able to have with them. And they really have stepped up to where it's great for right now where I'm at. But eventually, I'm going to need to pay them that money.
Yep.
And so, oh, great, the bar's reopened. Well, that's going to be hanging over the head and being paid back over time when it's done. I mean, it's just...
So many small businesses are in a hole now, and they're going to be digging out for years.
No, absolutely.
Literally years. And people are looking around going, they'll be back to business in no time at all. Mm-hmm. We got to we got to cut the curve down. We got to flatten the curve. Flatten the curve, not the economy. That was one of my podcasts. And again,
I do care about people. I really do.
Yeah.
And I'm a high risk person. I'm a type 1 diabetic. So like I'm somebody who needs to care about the fact that I probably have immunodeficiency, where I have to be concerned about it. But for me, again, at the end of it, I would love to take a look at this now and be like, hey, if you knew the numbers that you're seeing from the American public, go back in time 2 months. What would you have thought about a little bit differently?
Yeah.
Because was it worth,
tanking
the economy? Because we haven't even seen the start of what tanking the economy looks like.
No, we are on the very forefront of that. People think that all this funding is going to take place and things are magically going to go back.
Right.
Wildly incorrect.
Yeah.
So let's theoretically say, hey, you've got a date. When and what will it look like when you reopen? Right now? Let's talk about the dates. Right now, I'm pointing up here for people who can't see in the podcast. April 31st is the national shutdown. That's what the national shutdown has been extended to. Mm-hmm. The next date after that is May 4th, is when the Washington State shutdown is extended to.
Right.
Today, President Trump is going to be talking with his pandemic committee council, I think. Mm-hmm. He's got some new players on there, and they're going to tell us, he's going to reveal the most important information of his presidential career. This is it's the important decision.
Right.
So what does he say? What do you think he says? It's a date. It's going to be a date when we go back.
Okay, so I've heard, again, I feel like we had a Jay Inslee thing last week that, again, probably doesn't have much influence on what Donald Trump does, but you heard it in what he said on Friday, that he was really going to probably give us another date stretched out from May 4th.
He may extend it
right.
out. He was leaving himself the option.
Completely, that was him saying we're probably going to May 15th is what I feel like. But my biggest concern is I don't, even when it comes back up, the social distancing requirements and suggestions are really going to, from a retail and a hospitality environment, it's going to make it so that I will not be operating at my capacity I was at in February again for months. I mean, it'll be a long time before I'm at that.
Let's throw out, let's say just for kicks, and I would love to see this because I would be at off the rails. Cinco de Mayo is a go.
Not a chance.
Let's say Cinco de Mayo is a go. Let's say Cinco de Mayo happens. What capacity is your bar at on day one of opening? Are you 50% in order to keep that social distancing? What does that look like?
I've thought about that because, what was nice for me in Bellevue is that the square footage is 5,500 square feet.
That's a big bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big bar.
But I'm guessing that I'd have to have some 6-foot distance tape on the floor lined up outside from the bar rail to the back. I'd probably have to have less seating, the whole thing. I can't imagine them letting me open full. I feel like what did we go down to? It was 250 people, then 50 people, then 10 people.
10 people, yep.
Then 2 people, or whatever we're at now.
Yeah, 2 people.
By the way, at Juanita Bay, they've got a boat waiting out at the edge of the bay. It's a police boat, and my understanding is what they're doing is they're watching everybody out in their recreational boats, making sure there's no more than, I believe it's 3 people in each boat.
They have nothing better to do.
Right, giving them a friendly warning about that. Yeah, just saying. Yeah. But I just thought I'd throw that in. But
that's so funny.
But I feel like I am not going to be able to be 50% would be wishful thinking. If they would let me go 50%, I have a chance.
So how long can you operate at 50% of your business?
Well, personally, me as the business owner, I can operate at whatever level I have to as long as I'm open. For my employees, that's where it becomes difficult because tip income is going to be less. The number of people necessary is going to be less. And we all make money together. And in the end, I have to be able to make the payments on the things that need to be made. Will I have to renegotiate my lease with my landlords? I mean, if the economic utility of the space has changed, is it fair for me to continue to pay what I'm paying based on the way the world used to look?
That's the massive difference I think most people don't understand, is that a lot of businesses are not going to be able to pay. They are not modeled to work in this market going forward.
Oh yeah, because the margins in
the
the bar
margins are thin.
Yeah, absolutely.
In food business in general, they're thin.
Right.
And you've got some massive overhead between your rent, food cost, drink cost, and just keeping the lights on.
Oh, no doubt.
And then you take your business and cut it in your gross in half. And okay, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
How much demand, how many people will be willing on March 5th to come out and hang out? And then on a consistent basis after that, do you see a flood of people going out that first time? Do you see your regulars come back? Or are half of them freaked out by all the media having overblown this pandemic? Are they flipped out at home trying not to catch?
I think it depends on where they work, too, as well. Like if you're an Amazon employee, a Microsoft employee, a Google employee, like they were telling me before the thing went, they were getting emails every day about additional pandemic concerns to have and things to do. Like the information flying at them is different than my service industry people who all come into my place to have a drink after they get off their work, So depending on your age and where you work is also going to have an impact on how open you are to reemerging into social society. Like it's
your bar patrons, are they in? Are they like, I'm going to go to the
more
bar?
of them would be in
Yep.
than would be out.
Yep.
Governor Inslee would probably not be one of my bar patrons. Like his mentality is definitely a different mentality about it than they are. And again, I think they're safe. I think they're assessing their risks and figuring out what works for them. I feel like secondarily what needs to happen as we reopen, and I'm hoping they change to this, is they kind of went nuclear in the first one where we're going to destroy everything. So everybody go live in a cave and we'll all survive. And now I feel like what they need to do is they need to get more strategic and pinpoint about it. And they're going to say, hey, we're going to reopen. Here is the demographic we really have to protect right now. And here are the routes we're going to go to really take great care of this group. And the thing that's difficult for that politically is it's not very acceptable to do. Like, it's okay for you and I, we're white dudes that work in, and I'm not making this about race or anything like that. But the whole point is like, hey, we're fairly well-to-do dudes who our businesses got shut down. Well, that's the price you pay when you're a businessman. Well, if I'm an older person, I'm not going to be allowed the access. Like we've all given up our rights under the Constitution to be able to try to help everybody. Now, if we're going to pinpoint some groups that are less healthy or less ready to fight an immune disease kind of a thing, if we're going to pinpoint those groups and take away some privileges that they have, watch what happens politically with that. That will be a problem. Because we're all giving things up, I think it's easier for everyone to stomach, but the price of that is too high. So what needs to happen now is it's got to be pinpoint for the good of the people we're trying to help. And if
you want to keep that segment of society safe, and unfortunately,
you're going to have the ACLU and people come in that are just going to be like, no,
there's a lot of unhealthy people in a couple of different demographics.
Right, and you're not picking them out for any reason other than you are more likely to be harmed.
Yeah, they are at more risk.
But unfortunately, there are always people looking to complain about that.
Yep.
And that's where socially it's unacceptable to do what probably is the best thing to do. And it's really, I wouldn't be able to solve it if I were a politician. I'm just saying this is a problem we're going to run into. And in order to have an operational economy, like, am I going to have to be at the door to my bar and instead of carding people to see if they're 21, I'm going to card people to see if they're 65, And I'm like, hey, I'm sorry, you can't come in. Am I going to have to do that?
That's a really good point.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, and
that's one of my questions is, when things do open back up, what specifically do you, and we've talked a little bit about having tape on the floor and being socially distanced, what other kind of things, like, are you going to have to wear masks, for those first few days?
I feel like
Gloves?
You have to, you have to put your best foot forward with your customers. And there are some customers, even before the thing, there are some customers who beginning of February, they were coming in and just only wanting to touch elbows.
Yeah.
And then there are other people who right up to the very end, we're like we're shaking hands, you know. And it's just different approaches to it.
Guys at the gym were coming up like giving me bro hugs,
right,
at the tail end,
all sweaty after
I was
a workout.
Kind of like,
yeah.
Do you not know there's a pandemic going on?
Right, exactly.
What are you doing? And you kind of give them a hard time, but then you're like...
Inside, you're kind of like, I need to go find some hand sanitizer.
Yeah, I need to go wash my hands.
Exactly.
And what I was doing is, in my head, I was thinking, I was that guy 1 week ago. Mm-hmm. I was running around just like, woo-hoo.
Right.
So day one, you can go back to the gym, will you?
Absolutely. Yep. Dude, I mean, come on.
You're going to pick up that dumbbell and go...
I might not lick my hand after doing it, but definitely.
We're going to touch a lot of stuff. And then what does the gym look like?
I know, seriously, same thing. I feel like there will be limits to the social distancing thing. I feel like is just going to be something we aren't going to be able to escape.
How many people per room in the club? That's going to be difficult. How are they going to figure that out? I don't know.
Right.
It's just crazy. So you don't really know what changes obviously will happen.
Well, I feel like I'll probably have to have all of my, like, even though I don't know that there's a benefit, I've thought about this too. Like the people who are wearing gloves, when they're putting the gloves on, they've got to touch the gloves with their hands.
Yeah.
And when they're wearing the gloves, they're touching stuff with the gloves. So then the gloves are the same as your hands, aren't they?
Yeah.
I'm trying to, again,
it's like
I'd love somebody to tell me why it matters, because like you got to wash the gloves then to kill the germs, which is just like washing your hands. So unless it's to keep your hands from looking like 80-year-old hands like mine are starting to look.
Mine are looking for washing them so
I don't
often.
understand the gloves. I'm trying to figure that out.
Facebook post that I saw that was so funny, it was somebody with a shopping cart in front of them, and they were wearing gloves, and they had one of the gloves off, and they needed a text. And where did they have that glove? In their mouth.
Right.
They were holding it in their mouth.
And that's my thing. Like, will I probably for the sake of those customers who are uber concerned, I'll probably need to be like, okay, we're wearing gloves when we're doing stuff at the bar. Wear the face mask while you're serving with customers, just to give them that, hey, we care enough about this that not only are you seeing us clean, but we're taking it as seriously as you need us to take it so you can feel comfortable being here with us.
Right.
And that absolutely, I'm sure that's going to have to be the approach. But for me, I'm like, how long does that go on? How long are we going to do that? Because it's kind of like, like we talk about the dumb injuries we have in the gym all the time. If you just power through the pain you feel in the injury, eventually the nerve gets tired of telling you there's pain, and you can just work through it.
You work through it, yeah.
And
in theory, that works.
Right. But I feel like it's the same way with panic. You can be absolutely panicked and fearful all the time, every time.
Yep.
But after about a month of that, it's not as panic-stricken. After 2 months...
That's one of the funny things that I was listening to the Joe Rogan podcast a few days ago, and he's like, this is why we all have to go back to work now, is because the United States government doesn't have any more fear it can sell us.
Right.
That was the bottom line, is we have extrapolated the worst case scenario on every single thing that has happened. Oh no, we might run out of ventilators. No, that didn't happen. Oh no, we might run out of masks. That didn't happen. Oh no, 1 million people are going to die. That didn't happen.
Right.
None of those things have happened in worst case scenario. And now we've got something that is way less, but we've shut down the economy over it, and that impact is going to be way harder than people give any credit to. People are like, oh no, we gotta save all these people. That's true, but at what cost?
See, and now I'm sitting here, I'm a little bit fearful that because I haven't been able to talk in social gatherings with people enough to get feedback on what my thoughts are, I might be being way too honest about exactly what I think, and I might have... it's because we're all cooped up and we got all this
crazy,
and we have that little extra stress of like, everything I've worked for all these years
is
about
tank.
to just blow up.
Yeah, it's blowing up in front of me.
Good times.
Yeah.
But I think about just the simple, like, even moving forward as you're looking at how is everything in the world going to work. Am I going to get mean mugged every time I'm outside now and I'm not wearing a face mask?
I got yelled at yesterday when I was walking by a young dude who clearly wasn't very healthy. And he did not like me walking past him on a major thoroughfare without wearing a mask.
Yeah, and I preface all of this with like, I do care, but there's like at some point, like we are only, and this sounds, and again, it just is what it is. I thought a little bit more about Mad Max and stuff like that here recently, and I've been watching a lot of
post-apocalyptic.
I was watching some Al Capone documentaries, so now I'm thinking about Prohibition era, and I'm like, hey, the only reason that we actually are governed is because we are willing to be governed. And the one thing that the government brings us is an orderly, efficient, working economy. And that's one of the major items they've got that they don't control us with it, but we're happy to be here and follow the rules because we get to participate in that.
Right now we're not participating.
Now that has been taken away. So then you got to ask yourself, now let's say that I'm a hashtag stay home, stay safe person who just found out I got furloughed, and now it's 3 weeks that have gone by, and I'm still watching the people who have money at Costco going to pick up their toilet paper, and I'm thinking, hey, me and my 500 buddies, you know what? We don't have cash to do anything anymore. We're starting to get a little concerned. We're going to go in there and we're going to take what we want.
When do the animals get restless?
Right. How far away are we from those kinds of things? Yep. And at a certain point, when does the black market economy open up? Where it's like hey, I'm not allowed to do the business I want to do, but dang it, everyone looks like a prehistoric caveman right now. I'm cutting hair at my house. That's just going to happen.
Oh, so much. I think so much of that is I see contractors and out working, and I know they're not doing, essential work. I know they're not. I see
finishing a project that was already started.
Yeah, that was started 3 weeks ago.
I don't blame them for that.
Yeah.
My feeling is I'm like the government understands it, and Donald Trump knows that, and so does Jay Inslee. And they understand they can only maintain this for so long. And we've talked about it to this point.
Yep.
What happens when we finally get to that tipping point, and how far away is that tipping point?
Yep.
I feel like there's a certain group we found out that 10% of the population works in bars and restaurants so far. And that group has been impacted the hardest by this right now.
Just shut down.
Just crushed.
Yep.
And what we're going to find out next is the next level from that is going to find out what it feels like soon. And probably are already. I've heard about people getting furloughed from larger companies and such now.
We're seeing that on the daily. We've had a bunch of people get fired from real estate companies.
Yeah.
Redfin.
Redfin
laid off 41% of their staff. Those guys are on salary.
Right.
The reason you go to Redfin is because you got a salary plus a little bonus.
Yeah.
Those guys are done. Their cash flow, they can't handle it. So
how far are we from that? I feel like we're not as far from it as people might think.
And that's why, Dan, I think that we go back. I think business opens closer to that end of April than much further.
I hope you're right, because honestly, I'm looking at the model now and I'm like, okay, maybe my bars aren't going to be able to open till June 1st. Can I do that? Yeah, I'll figure out a way to get there.
I think that's at the latest.
I hope you're right.
I'm
more pessimistic. I know,
and you have to deal with more of a, all right. You in your mind have to deal with, you're going to be the last group to get opened.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
No doubt
and that sucks. Yeah. You and gyms. How about movie theaters? Is anybody ever going to go to a movie again?
Right. And are they going to have to hire people to clean them
How close
every time?
Can you sit to your family member? Yeah. Do you want to go with your girlfriend? Because we don't have wives. We don't really believe in that. So do you want to go with your girlfriend and sit like 3 seats over? Hey, I liked that scene.
No,
you're not.
Yeah.
AMC and movie theater, they already contacted bankruptcy attorneys.
They were saying they're going. Yeah, I saw that.
So that's brutal. So I think we'll open up sooner than you think, you're predicting.
I've never hoped you were right more than I do right now.
One of the things is President Trump has already talked about the beautiful Easter that did not happen, right? He was talking beautiful Easter. Now, he had to give up his beautiful Easter. And could we have reopened? Yeah, we could have, but it would have been just a crazy time to do it. Now we've got more data, and over the next 2 weeks we'll have even more data that I think he will strategically be able to point at and go, yep, we're good. Let's go back.
So here's my thing. What hurts me a little bit is I feel like the next big holidays he has are too far away. Now we're past Easter. does he open America up again for the 4th of July? You know, and that's what
the
sucks.
most patriotic.
I don't want it to go
He can't
that
go
far.
that long. He can't go that
dude,
long.
that'd be
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then, okay, so then, and we'll wrap up here soon because I think we've pretty much covered everything.
Yeah.
But what happens on a presidential basis? He says, yep, April 31st, we're going with it. And our governor says, yep, nope, we're extending it.
We're going to see
We're going to
that.
go May 15th.
No, we're most likely to see that really, we're most likely to see that out of our group on the West Coast.
How many dudes say, you know what? On the federal level, I'm going to go with that date. You can take your state date and stick it.
Right.
We're opening up.
It's going to be, and what happens to marijuana shops? Right? They have to go with it. I guess are they still essential?
They are essential.
Okay.
In every state that put a shutdown order, they all consider them essential because you have to medicate the people.
Right.
You got to keep the people medicated. Otherwise, they'll do what we just talked about. They will revolt.
Right. Keep it calm.
And also, the thing that nobody really wants to talk about, they create a lot of tax dollars for their individual states.
Right. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
that's why those guys still just keep going. Even
Yeah.
though 80% of the people in the country that are incarcerated are there for marijuana.
Look at you.
Yeah.
You're like a plethora
So
of knowledge on that. Okay.
how does that work?
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm glad the weed stores are open, as well as the gooey duck industry.
I know. I've heard you say the gooey duck industry before. There's got to be something
the gooey
really
duck.
important going on.
I bring that up just because it's so random that it's crazy. I actually think, from my end of things, I think the shutdown has been handled probably as well as it could have been. Now, there were 2 days where real estate brokers were not considered essential, and it was pandemonium.
Mm-hmm.
And also appraisers were not, we didn't really know. We didn't have a reading as to what it was.
Right.
But what we did is we looked around, and we looked at the wording and looked around at what other states had done, and clearly appraisers were. But in some states, real estate brokers were not considered essential. So from my end of things, my main concern is that all of the fallout that will happen will impact real estate. It will. There's no way
doubt
you
about
can
it.
shut
I
down an
agree.
economy.
Yeah.
And so, do we go to 30% unemployment?
Well, we could do hours just
Yeah,
on
hours. And guys are doing
employment
that.
verification, all that kind of stuff.
It's like we talked about early, JJ the CPA.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a few YouTube guys, and we're right in there too. Our YouTube time has gone way up because you've got a captive audience of a lot of people sitting at home. What can I watch?
Right.
So,
yeah.
so let's end this podcast by, what would you recommend from Netflix or Amazon Prime? What's your viewing? What have you seen that's really good that people should binge on?
So here's the thing is, I've realized that I have a few friends that have been sending me things that I should watch, and I'm realizing I watched most of the stuff already. I'm disappointed in how much Netflix I'm clearly watching, but I have to tell you, it's kind of dark, so it's probably not the right thing to watch during this atmosphere, during what we're in right now.
Yeah.
But it has a little bit of a pandemic feel to it, so people will get into it. I shockingly found a thing on Amazon Prime I hadn't seen before called Fortitude. And it's like just a random, and there's actually more than one season, which is a critical thing for me when I'm looking for something to watch.
Because you want something to be able
I
to,
hate it when it's only one season.
or like a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, so like I'm already done with Ozark. Everybody knows about Ozark. That's great. You have to watch Ozark.
We're watching Ozark.
Yeah.
And that's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This Fortitude one is weird. It's about some town in the northernmost town in the world, kind of a deal. But trust me, it's just weird, but it's kind of dark. I felt like at the end of it, I'm like, am I less happy or more happy since I watched this? But it's interesting.
It's one of those things where you let your mind wander a little bit, and then you're like, let's come back to our reality. We're in a pandemic.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, this isn't all that weird.
This isn't all that crazy. All those
yeah.
movies we used to look at and go, God, that is strange.
Yeah.
I know there was a movie when I was a kid, it was the Andromeda strain. And it
Yes.
was about a flu-like virus.
Actually, that's what this Fortitude thing made me start thinking about. I'm like, this reminds me a lot of that book.
Andromeda Strain.
Yeah.
I watched that in 6th grade, and it was like, oh God, that's some scary stuff.
Yeah.
And you got the flu that goes around and kills people.
But how about you, man? Anything? You're Ozarking it?
We've been Ozarking it. What else? I have 4 or 5 that I kind of. Homeland. I'll
Right.
watch the new episodes because was it Claire Danes?
That's good.
She's
I need
amazing.
That. Yeah.
Yeah.
I told you I've been watching all kinds of documentaries about why you should be a vegan and not a carnivore.
Oh, yeah.
That's the
Yeah,
big.
yeah.
And it's and unfortunately I don't have a lot of people in my vicinity anymore that are around me. So like I'm seeing this stuff and now I'm accepting everything I watch on TV as truth, and like it's just
Sure.
it's getting really
That's what we
weird.
do.
Yeah.
That's what we do because we don't have enough. I have, I can see these guys here at work.
Right.
We're socially distanced, of course.
Right.
But, a lot of people that I'm used to seeing, like going to the gym,
Yeah.
not happening.
No, not
That's
at all.
the number one thing that I need back in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And as sad as that sounds, the gym.
I wish we all would have weighed ourselves the day they shut the gyms down, and we could all weigh ourselves the day they reopen it back up to get a real sense of the actual
What was
true
the weight?
cost.
Yeah, the gain.
The true cost.
Fat
to
percentage
America.
gain, 4% in 1 month.
I'm certain of that.
It's an all-time record.
Yeah.
All right. Well, during this podcast, we had Burger Master delivered. I can smell it, so we've got to end this
time to
because
go.
Nikki's over here eating his Burger Master.
I've been noticing the fries.
Yeah, they look good.
Yeah.
So we're going to end this podcast. So Dan, thank you so much for coming on and kind of sharing with us your experience. And because I felt like I could ask you, hey, would you come on? This is a hard thing to do. Come on and talk about businesses that are not operating.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for providing your insight. And if we're open on May 5th,
Oh, dude, you're my hero. if
I'm
we're
there,
open on May
and I'm
5th.
there.
Hello.
I will
Yeah.
be getting a draft beer at the bar.
No, you'll be drinking a bottled Corona is what you'll be doing. Come on, man. You know
I hadn't
that.
thought of that.
Yeah.
Is that too far? Is that going too far?
No,
Oh, okay.
my goodness.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dan, thanks so much for
Yeah.
coming on. And for all of you viewers out there on YouTube, thanks for watching to this point. We really appreciate it. And everybody listening on the podcasts out there as well. So again, I'm Sean Reynolds and Dan Flitsch. Thanks for coming on. We'll catch you in the next one. We're doing live podcasts, or not live, we're doing podcasts every day till the shutdown is over. And maybe even then, a little further.
There you go.
So thanks again. We'll catch you in the next one. Bye. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell so you'll know when our next video is out.